Good morning يا شباب. سامعيني كده؟ تمام. Today بإذن الله we are going to take a new thing which is, or we are going to take an introduction for the biology in general. Then we are going to move with the curriculum part by part. First of all, to differentiate between a living organism and a non-living organism, the scientists, they started to pick the first letter from 7 processes of life, okay? And they called it a new word which is called Mrs. Brain. Every letter from these words, it represents a certain characteristic that a living organism he has in order to perform a specific function, or he uses it to differentiate between him and between the non-living organism. And for example, if we're going to take the first letter, which represents the word movement. Okay, so the movement, all living organisms on Earth, they move. Of course, we are as animals, by the way, we are animals with thinking brain, because our cell, it looks like the cell of the animal. So we can move from a place to another. But what about plants? Also plants, they can move, but not with the effect of wind. For example, the sunflower. The sunflower, it can tilt itself to the direction of sunlight. But what about leaves? Also, the leaves, they do have the ability in order to move and tilt and turn themselves to the direction of sunlight. What for? To absorb as maximum sunlight as possible, to do the maximum photosynthesis, which is the way they used to do their own food. What about bacteria? Also, bacteria, they do have the ability to move from a location to another. And when we are going to take the cell of the bacteria, you will know what is the structure that it has, which helps it to move from a place to another. So by this, I proved for you that all living organisms on Earth, they move. Like, what about the second letter, which is R? R, it represents the word respiration. So why I picked respiration and I didn't pick the word breathing? Simply because not all living organisms on Earth, they do have a lung and they breathe. Only animals, they do have a lung and they breathe. But what about respiration? What is the meaning of respiration? Respiration in general, it means when the cell, it breaks down glucose to release energy out of it. The cell needs the minimum amount of energy to keep you alive. And for example, the brain cells, they need energy to send electrical impulses to the heart to make it beat. Also, it sends electrical impulses to the diaphragm, which is responsible for letting you breathe. So your body, even while if you are sleeping and dreaming, still your body and brain cells and cells, they need energy in order to keep you alive and do the minimum activities that will allow you to be alive. Right. Respiration, it happens inside the cell, but there are two major types of respiration. One of them is called the aerobic respiration, and the other type, which is called anaerobic respiration. The aerobic respiration is when the cell is going to break down glucose, but in presence of oxygen. Yani, for example, glucose plus oxygen inside the cell, and this will give you energy and as a waste product, carbon dioxide and water in a form of vapor. Okay? But if you are asked to write a balanced equation, not a word equation, you have to write the symbolic formula for the glucose, which will be C6H12O6 plus oxygen. But this question, it might be graded for 3 marks. Am I going to take the 3 marks now? No. Why? Because 1 mark will be for the reactants and you took it. 1 mark will be for the product and also you took it. But the 3rd mark will be for balancing the equation. You have to balance the equation. You have to make the atoms before the arrow are equal to the atoms after the arrow. So you have to add 6 before oxygen, before carbon dioxide, and before water. And by this, it's going to be balanced. This takes place inside the cells, majority of the plant and the animal cells. But what about the anaerobic respiration? The anaerobic respiration, it happens in two cases. In your muscle cells, if you are under strenuous exercise, heavy exercise, and without warming up, من غير ما نسخن. So you didn't increase your breathing rate and breathing depth yet. So no enough air containing enough oxygen to supply your cells with plenty of oxygen to break down glucose more and release more energy for the muscle cell to use it. And your muscles, they need energy by any means. So they will grow through this anaerobic respiration in absence of oxygen. Like what the cell is going to do? They will break down glucose in absence of oxygen, but they will release energy with lower amount than the aerobic respiration, and also they will produce a substance which is called lactic acid. This lactic acid is going to cause cramps to the muscles. This will force you to stop the activity and force you to increase your breathing rate and breathing depth, the depth of the breath itself, in order to increase the intake of air, which will contain large amount of oxygen. And this will break down the lactic acid, releasing the energy out of it, relieving the pain from the muscle, and will allow the muscle to go through the normal way, which is aerobic respiration again. Like, what about the other type of cells which do anaerobic respiration? They are the bacteria cells, and not all the bacteria cells. Some of the bacteria cells, for them, the oxygen is toxic for them. So they go through the anaerobic respiration. And also, this will happen with the yeast. Right. The cell is going to break down glucose in absence of oxygen, and they will release energy, which is with the less amount also, and carbon dioxide and alcohol. Okay? In industry, we can use this type of anaerobic respiration in the industry. In either bread making, so we can use the carbon dioxide, which will be in the paste. Yani we can add yeast to the in the bread making, for example, and the carbon dioxide, when it's going to be put in the oven, it will expand and it will make the bread fluffy. So it will not be hard bread. It will be the fluffy bread that we eat. That we eat it. But also, we can use the alcohol in alcoholic drinks. We can condense this alcohol, turns it from a gas state into a liquid state for people who are going to drink alcohol or in sanitizers. So this is the two ways we are going to use the anaerobic respiration. Of course, for the extended, you have to know the balanced chemical equation for both of them. When we reach topic respiration, chapter 11, we're going to take them in full details. But for now, this is an introduction. Right. What about S? S, it stands for sensitivity, or it has another word, which is irritability. What is the difference between sensitivity and irritability? They are the same words for the same meaning. But let us take first three words. These three words, we are going to use them to describe the sensitivity. Stimulus is the singular word, but if you're going to change the S with I, it will be the plural word. In Latin, we don't have plural using detector. Sorry, we don't have a plural using S. The other word here is called the detector. And the third word that we will use is called the response. Like, what is it, the stimulus? Stimulus is the feeling, like light, sound, hot object, rough object. Okay, it's non-living thing. What about the detector? Is one of your 5 sensations: your eye, your nose, your tongue, your skin. Your response is your action towards this stimulus. Like, if we need them in a definition for sensitivity or irritability, so you are going to say you respond towards a stimulus, okay, which might be light, hot object, pain, using one of your five sensations or using the detector. Okay? Okay. So this goes for sensitivity. Let us move to the other word, which is green, and starts with the word after it. Okay? But let us, okay. Okay. Mm, fine. Okay, no problem. We can keep it. معلش, 1 second, please. Okay. Let us move to the word after it, which is grin. And let's take the first letter of it, which is G. The G, it represents the growth. But what is the difference between growth and another word that we didn't pick it, which is the development? What is the difference between these two words? Growth is when the cell is going to increase in number and in size. All living organisms on Earth, their cells, they do have the ability to increase in number and in size while they are growing. But what about the development? Development, it means when the cell is going to increase in its complexity. It's going to be much more advanced. So what is the difference between these two terms? Of course, all living organisms on Earth, as I told you, they do have the ability to increase in number and in size. But not all living organisms on Earth are going to be more advanced. Like the bacteria cell, they are simple cells and they will keep simple. Okay, they cannot be advanced and do tough processes other than this. So this is why we picked growth and we didn't pick the word development. Let us move to the letter after it, which means reproduction, and we will take the reproduction topic in full details. But in general, reproduction are two types: either sexual, which needs two parents, or asexual, which needs only one parent. Only one parent has the ability to increase in size and divide into two cells. For example, like in bacteria, the bacteria, it has the ability to increase in its size, to double its size, and then it's going to divide to form two cells. And by this, they reproduce asexually. Okay? Right. Let us move to the word after it, which means excretion. Okay. For excretion, this is the removal of waste products or toxic material out of your body, which is resulting from metabolism. Okay, 1 moment, please. In the definition for excretion, you have to mention the word metabolism, and you have to say that these toxic or unwanted waste products, they are going to go out of your body, and by this you will be graded by 3 marks. So what is the meaning of the word metabolism? Metabolism is either catabolism or anabolism. So when your body is going, for example, to break down substances, katakasar, break down. Okay, so this will be catabolism. So when your body is going to digest materials, okay, this is will be this digestion is going to be what catabolic way of digestion. Okay, just 1 second. Okay, I was checking that the session is recorded. Let us go back. So what about the anabolism? In anabolism, it means when your body is going to use these very small substances that they are digested and is going to build up things inside your body using them. So ana babni, building up. Let us take examples for this. Catabolism, example for it, digestion. Example for it, respiration, because I'm going to break down the food, I'm going to break down glucose to release energy out of it. But what about anabolism? Anabolism is, for example, the photosynthesis. The photosynthesis, the plant cells are going to, in photosynthesis, the cells are going to um, build up food inside the plant. So this is building up. And for example, if you are going, your body is going to use amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein, to build up a protein in your body, this will be anabolism, building up. I'm trying to build up thing inside my body. طب الويست برودكتس بقى من الفوتوسينثيسيس اللي هو oxygen, this will be excretion because it's a waste product for the photosynthesis process. What about in the catabolism? For example, in the respiration, the carbon dioxide and the water vapor will be the excretory waste products. Take care, we cannot use another word which is called egestion. Egestion is when we go to the bathroom, and not all living organisms on earth, they do have a digestive system and they use this way of removing things out of their body. This is why I picked the word excretion and I didn't pick the word egestion. Fine. Let us move to the last letter, which is called the okay. I'm going just to give this screen another number and save it. Okay, let us move to the last letter, which means nutrition. And what is the meaning between the word nutrition and feeding? Feeding is when you're going to eat something, okay? And not all living organisms on earth, they do have digestive system and mouth to eat. This is why we pick the word nutrition. And nutrition is two major types. One of them is called the autotrophic way of feeding, and the other one is called the hetero or the heterotrophic way of feeding. This word, it means something in Latin. Auto, it means self. Trophic, it means feeding. So what about heterotrophic? Hetero, it means that we are going to depend on others to obtain our own food. What is the kind of living organism which makes autotrophic way of feeding? Plants, by a process which is called photosynthesis. By way synthesis, it means making or manufacturing. And photo, it means light. So using light, the plant is going to do its own food. But what about the equation? The equation is opposite to the aerobic respiration. I mean, the plant is going to take carbon dioxide from the air, water from the soil, in presence of sunlight, and the presence of the chloroplast or chlorophyll, and glucose will be released, which is C6H12O6. Plus, the waste product for photosynthesis is oxygen. But also, if it is graded with 3 marks, you have to balance the equation. Okay? Let us go to the heterotrophic way of feeding, which has so many types. 3 types, I guess you have the idea about them, which is the carnivore. Carnivores, this means that they are going to depend on their own food on meat, like lion. They are meat eaters. But what about the herbivores? The herbivores also it has coming the word from herds. So they are plant eaters, like the goat, like the sheep, like the cow. Omnivorous, which comes from my name. I'm Omneya, and I'm a human being. I eat both plants and animals. So let us take the other types, which is, for example, parasites. Parasites are living organisms. They depend on others to obtain their own food, but unfortunately, they cause them a disease. يعني, for example, like a mosquito. A mosquito is going to suck the blood. So they will take blood from you containing nutrients and sugar, but they will cause you a disease. Mosquito, a special type which lives in tropical regions, not in our regions, they cause a disease which is called malaria. Malaria ده is fatal disease. It might cause death. Okay? So this way of feeding living organism depends upon another living organism, okay, but will cause him a disease. There is another way of feeding which is called saprotrophic. The saprotrophic way of feeding, I'm talking about decomposers mainly. Decomposers like the bacteria or the fungi, they depend on dead or non-living organisms. Okay? So if the bacteria or a person who is going to die or a plant will die, or even food like bread, vegetable, fruits, and this kind of bacteria is going to find them, they will secrete substance which is called extracellular enzyme, I mean chemical or enzyme, out of their body to digest them, to turn them from insoluble into soluble, so they can absorb them and get benefits out of them. Take care of something. If there is a vegetable or a fruit which is spoiled in the kitchen, put it in a plastic bag and throw it, because it might spread for the rest of the vegetables and the fruits. Of course, if there is a suitable condition, like humidity or room temperature. So this is how the decomposers, they feed upon dead bodies. Okay? في word بتلخبط between decomposers which is called detrivores. بس detrivores دي like the hyena. They feed upon remains of hunted living organisms. يعني if there is a lion will hunt a goat, and the remains of the goat, this hyena or detrivores, they do have the ability to go and eat them without hunting. The last type of the heterotrophic way of feeding, which is the nutrition type, is called the symbiotic way of feeding. In the symbiotic way of feeding, both of them, they exchange benefits. Okay? How? For example, the flies which live on the back of, this is called symbiotic, and like the flies which are going to live on the back of animals, they will feed upon the remains or the dead cells on the back of these animals, and the animal will be clean. And this is a mutual way of feeding. I mean, both of them are going to be benefit. Both of them will get benefits. Fine. So this is the introduction for the biology in general. Of course, every one of these things, we're going to take them in full details in a separate topic while we are moving through the curriculum. But for now, let us move, okay, to our curriculum in details. Okay. Cells, okay? The two major types of cells on Earth are called either prokaryotic or eukaryotic. What is the difference between prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells? Pro in Latin, it means no. Karyotic, it means nucleus. What about eukaryotic? If you will flip the two letters together, this will give you true nucleus. What is the example Our major example for prokaryotic cells are bacteria. How do prokaryotic cells they look like? Not all bacteria they do have this structure, but majority of them, the most common type that we have to study. For the bacteria, they do have cell wall. All of this thickness is the thickness of the cell wall. So if I'm going to label here or in the middle, I'm talking about cell wall. But the cell wall for the bacteria is made from a special material which is called murine, or it has another name which is peptidoglycan. You can write murine or peptidoglycan. Peptidoglycan, it comes from the word peptide, which is protein. Glycan comes from glycogen, which is carbohydrate. I mean that the cell wall is made from a mixture of protein and glycogen or carbohydrate. It gives it the name of murine. Fine. Right. So this goes for murine or peptidoglycan, the cell wall. A cell wall, its function is to give support for the cell, strength for the cell. But what about the very thin layer here? This one, the inner one. This is the cell membrane. The cell membrane is a very thin layer. Its function is to control what will go inside the cell and what will leave the cell. And I can describe the difference between cell membrane and cell wall, that they are like the security and like your mom. The security, if you are good looking, it will allow you to go inside the building or the compound that you live at. While the cell membrane is like your mom. No one can go inside her home or leave the home without her permission. This is why the cell membrane, its function is to control what goes in and out of the cell. Here inside the cell, there is a jelly-like material which is called the cytoplasm. It's jelly-like material, but not the hard jelly. It's like the thick cream or jelly. Because everything inside the cell, it can move around kind of freely. Also, the bacterial cell or the prokaryotic cells, they do have a free loop. It's a loop joined together, but it is kind of tangled. This is called the free loop of DNA. Also, they do have another DNA, which is called plasmid. This plasmid, it helps them for conjugation or reproduction. Also, they do have tiny things scattered like this called ribosomes. But ribosomes, they are two types. Type advanced عند الanimal and the plant cells, or another type which is not advanced, and it is called 70S ribosomes. So simple ribosomes found in the prokaryotic cells. All these are characteristics found in the bacteria. But sometimes the bacteria cells, they will be having something which looks like a tail, which is called flagella. Flagellum, singular, flagella, plural. This flagella, it helps it for movement. It helps it to move. And this is why I told you before in the Mrs. Green that even bacteria, they do have the ability to move and change their location from a place to another. Also, sometimes they do have things coming out of the cell, which is called cilia. The cilia make them feel the things around them for sensitivity, and it allows them also to move from a place to another. And this happens for prokaryotic cells. Of course, in the notes, you will find that some bacteria they feed by saprotrophic wave feeding. Sometimes they are parasites. They do have different ways of feeding. And by the introduction, you know all the meanings for these terms. But what about the eukaryotic cells? I'm talking about which kind of cells? Here I'm talking about the animal cell and the plant cells. Let us go to a new screen to see the difference between animal cell and plant cell. طيب. Majority of the cells for the animal cell, they look like this. They look like a circle, not all of them. Okay? يعني the primitive cell, the first cell when you was inside your mother's womb, is the shape of the original cell. This is how it looks like. طبعا cells inside your body, they started to change in a way in order to do a specific function. But this is the original shape of the cell. It continued, by the way, inside your liver. This is why we will call it a typical liver cell. Yani liver cells, they still, till now, they do have the same shape. What is found in the animal cell? They do have a cell membrane. And of course, like the bacteria, this cell membrane is going to control what will goes in and out of the cell. Okay? Like, also, they do have a jelly-like material inside, which is called cytoplasm. The function of the cytoplasm is that all chemical reactions takes place inside it. يعني like our room in air around us, where the interactions between you and your mom and your dad and your sisters and brothers takes place inside this surrounding. Here also, all chemical reactions takes place inside the cytoplasm. In the animal cell, we do have a nucleus. And nucleus in Latin language, it means the center, the core. So the nucleus is the core of the animal cell. It controls all the cell activities. Okay. Also, it contains DNA, which is the genetic material. Okay, or it carries the genetic information inside the cell. Now, we ask you about the function of the nucleus, and it's graded by 2 marks. You have to mention that it has the DNA, which is the genetic material, and it controls all the cell activities to gain the 2 marks. Right. Let us take other things. Coming out of the membrane, and this is a cell membrane, coming out of the cell membrane of, of the nucleus, things which look like the fingers joined together. And they do have spots on their surface. طيب, number one, الdots دي, they are ribosomes. But this type is the advanced type, which is called ATS. What is the function of the ribosomes? The function of ribosomes is that they are responsible for protein making or synthesis or manufacturing. Fine. What about this organelle? إيه ده? Organelle, we didn't take this word before. Organelle, they are, or organelles, they are the tiny compartments, the tiny things found inside the cell. So the nucleus is organelle. This structure that I'm going to say right now is organelle. So all the things that we are going to take is organelle. It's not organ, organelle. Tiny compartments found inside the cell. This structure, okay, is called the endoplasmic reticulum. Reticulum. So this is called the endoplasmic reticulum. There are 2 types out of these endoplasmic reticulum. You don't have to know them in much details. The other type بيبقى away from the nucleus and it doesn't have ribosomes on its surface. And for the one which has ribosomes, it's called rough because it is rough. And the other one is smooth. And both of them, they are, yani, this one is responsible for making protein, packaging this protein, storing this protein temporarily, مؤقتا, then transporting this protein to other parts of the cell. While for the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, it is smooth, like oil. So it is responsible for oil, lipids, fats. So they will help or make lipids package these lipids, store them temporarily مؤقتا, and transporting them to other parts inside the cell. Fine. So this happens with the endoplasmic reticulum. طيب, can you tell me how these substances, they do have the ability to go in another region? I will explain this part, but here, largely. This is the tip of this endoplasmic reticulum, and here is the protein which is made, or this lipid that is going to be made here in the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. The membrane of this endoplasmic reticulum will do constriction around this lipid or protein, and it will be cut off to form something which is called a vesicle. So this is the vesicle. It is membranous structure found inside a protein or lipid, depending on rough endoplasmic reticulum or smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and it will be transported along the cell. Fine. But also, the animal cells, they do have something or a structure which is circle like this, and it has something in the middle. It looks like a worm كده شوية, which is called the mitochondria. What is the mitochondria? The mitochondria, this is the powerhouse of the cell. This what gives the cell energy. بيحصل inside it the aerobic respiration. يبقى في الميتوكوندريا aerobic respiration takes place inside it. Okay? So, aerobic respiration will happen inside the mitochondria. It will produce energy. This energy, it will give it to the cell to do its activities. Fine. By the way, all of these structures are found in both animal cells and plant cells. طيب. What about the plant cells? What other things that they do have more than these organelles inside the cell? Let us draw generally how the plant cells, they look like. There is a main layer in the plant, which is called the palisade cells, or the palisade layer and the cells, and they are mainly responsible for photosynthesis. The plant, they do have three things which are found in plant and not in animal, like the cell wall. Like the bacteria, yes, but from another material. It's made from a material called cellulose. Also, they do have chloroplast. It's a green structure, okay? This green structure found inside it pigment صبغة called chlorophyll, and photosynthesis process takes place inside it. Also, they do have a bag which is called large vacuole. This large vacuole. The large vacuole is the storage room for the cell. It stores everything and anything. Nutrients, water, wastes, anything. Fine. So these three things are the only three things which are found in plant cells and not in animal cells. Guys, don't forget something important, which is the nucleus is also found in the plant cells with the DNA. They do have endoplasmic reticulum, rough and smooth. They do have mitochondria. They do have ribosomes. They do have everything. Also, inside the cells, بيكون في ribosomes free in the cytoplasm, other than the ones which are sticking to the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And all of them are called ATS ribosomes. They are much more advanced, and they are responsible for protein making. By this, I give you introduction, and I gave you the original brain cells for the animal and the plant cells, okay, that they are found until now in the palisade cells in the plant and in the liver cells in the animal, okay? The coming recording will be having the specialized cells. Thank you so much for your time.